Good morning, Animators. Today we're going to animate a ball. That bouncing ball is the best. Don't feel like, oh, I've done a bouncing ball or two, did the heavy ball, I'm good to move on. You never move on from bouncing ball. Bouncing ball is forever, and you should take full advantage of it all the time. What I did was I set up a little obstacle course where my ball, who is sentient, it's a little alive ball, has to grab this rope, swing over, roll down this, and land on the ground. So this is the perfect little exercise to do if you're practicing. Don't practice with dragons. Don't practice with knights in full metal plate armor or chainmail or something really wild. If you're making something for show, for fun, to put on YouTube, that's fine. But when you're having a practice day, and I recommend you practice if you want to get better and at a real charge ahead pace, then dedicated practice to the principles is going to get you there faster. You have time when you're doing something fun, you have time for when you're doing something for display or for a purpose, like a demo reel piece, and you have practice time. Those are three different things, and if you treat them differently, if you put in dedicated practice, you're gonna get better faster. If you're doing this for fun, you don't care how fast you get better, do what you like. But if you want to get better for a purpose, either for your own stubborn efforts or because you're trying to get a job, put in dedicated practice to the principles, and little exercises like this are going to teach you way more than Animating Dragon is. Way more. All right, so I'm going to have my little ball roll over. I'm not going to hand draw this. I'm going to interpolate this whole thing. Ball needs to roll. Now there are kind of two ways you can do it. You can frame by frame it to the edge, or you can say, just move it like this and then decide a little bit of a fast pace here. And then I'm going to add a little rotation. Right, so I've just duplicated the ball and now I can roll it and have the timing the way I want it to. I've worked out the timing with my first ball, but we need the actual thing to rotate as well. And I want it to rotate from the bottom into place like this. So this is just like planting your feet. Some things in animation just take time, even if you're interpolating them. And you're like, well, Tracy, you could just spin it and then move it along that way and like interpolate it. But by planting your feet like this, you're going to get it rotating at the speed that makes sense. You're not going to have any skating, which is something very, very common in junior animation. Your rotation of your ball and your movement speed are different. So by planting it like this, you're going to get it rotating at the right speed. Move. And here, I also want it to squish. Okay, so we'll just get rid of that guy. Yep. I think I want this one to squish as well. Yep. So, like I said, you could just rotate it like this instead of planting the feet if you were in a hurry. But see, now this one is moving much faster rotating than it is. So we would have to dial it back some. It's still rotating. Oh, I've turned the whole thing. You dial it back and kind of like eyeball it like that. Planting the feet, it's a little bit harder in this respect. But if you were doing this with a character, you would have to plant those feet. So you'd get the rotation, the movement across the screen, and then plant the feet. So it's kind of good to treat it a little bit like it's more complicated than it is. If that makes sense. You could, of course, do it this way. So then we have squish, maybe one last squish, and then out. So let's have a little bit over, and then we're going to have to treat this thing like a vine. So this is one case where you could, again, do things a little bit more complicated than you need to. You could frame by frame all of this like kind of the standard way, or we could attach something to this deformer so that we can move the deformer and the animation will just come along for the ride. Right, so in our node library, in our deformation thing, we want to find a thing called the Kinematic Output. Where are you? Point Kinematic. Ooh, I have not played with those, but I need to. Kinematic Output. You could also use a bunch of other stuff, but for now I'm going to use the Kinematic Output. And this is saying I would like things to connect to this curve, but I do not want them to be deformed. And I'm going to attach my third ball to this. Okay, so now if I animate my thing, this is coming along for the ride. So I'm going to turn off the exposure for this one. Nope. This new ball I've created, I don't need any of the stuff that happened before it started to exist. Okay, so whoop. And then it will turn into this ball here. And we can make sure its pivot point is somewhere sensible as well. Right, we could even have the pivot point be the same place as this. So my rationale behind this, like, you're like, why would you do this? Why would you set things up in a more complicated way? So you're asking me, like, why would you do this convoluted thing? And it's because this practice is for more complicated stuff. We're not practicing to learn how to animate a ball. We're practicing to animate a character. And if the character picked the prop up off the table and it was now connected to the arm, animating the disconnected prop would be so much of a pain. You would have to counter animate everything. And I see people do it all the time. It's better to have two props, just like we've made two balls here, and we can now animate this ball very easily because it's connected to this. And because its pivot point is down here, we can have it drop at the same time. So see how simple that is to have this connected like that? And then we can have it let go. We could even have it swing back the other way if you wanted to, but I'm going to do this the cheapest way possible. And then I'm going to stop exposing this one and start exposing my independent one again. Now I do recommend that you put a blank keyframe in here rather than having big gaps, just because if you're shuffling keys around and stuff like that, blank places can end up being filled and stuff like that. So you're going to be playing with your exposure all the time. So make an empty drawing for when it's not being displayed, and then go back to its display later. And so now we need to line my little friend up. Let's use this, and we will think about how it's rotating. So it's got a little bit of spin on it. In this one, I'm not going to, because it's free falling and it's spinning, it doesn't have something like a ground plane to match. So I'm just going to eyeball that and think about how fast I want him to fall. Pretty fast, I think. And then with a little bit of backspin. So if something hits something and it's rotating backwards, it's going to try and go up. Okay, so see, it's got that little bit of backspin. It wants to go this way because of that spin, but gravity and its momentum this way want to take it that way. So if this was spinning very, very fast, I'd give it a skip step or a bounce or something to like take it back. That would be pretty substantial. But for now, because it's a little bit of a backspin, I think I'm just going to have like an impact frame where it's starting to skip back a little bit. And I have a tendency of just like reverting back to circle. So it's going to go boop, steal the rotation. Rather than trying to figure out where it is, I'll just copy the rotation there and have it skip back. There we go, boonk. And then it's going to start to fall down. So this is, and then this is just bouncing ball, but on a ramp. Again, this is something you could freeform the rotation because it's not touching the ground. That's the important thing. If it's touching the ground, you need to match its rotation to the ground. Boop. And here, I'm going to squish and have it start to hit the ground like that. So, and then the rotation will reverse. Whenever you're animating, you're thinking about the forces that are acting upon the ball. The spin of the ball is going to affect it, and I think this might slow down too much. So the spin of the ball is affecting it, but also the forward momentum is affecting it. So when you're watching this stuff, you're looking for all of those forces, and if they feel realistic, if they feel like you're getting the movement and impacts and adjustments that make sense, like if the wind is blowing, then you have to consider the wind in your calculations. If this is a very steep hill, it's going to affect the ball differently than a shallow hill. And it's being able to look at your animation and see if those forces feel accurate. That's going to get you really solid animation. I'm having a little bit of a bounce, but I'm having kind of bounce and roll at the same time. All right, so that's what I'm going to do for today because I'm trying to get stuff done quick. Whoa, that's a big pause. Is that right? All right. So this is my first pass, and the timing is not quite there yet, which is fine. When you're interpolating things, you can get away with like kind of shifting keys around and stuff. Boop. I feel like this part here, he goes down too straight, and I want him to go over more. So what I'm going to do, I can't all keyframes this because I don't want anything before it to be affected. I don't want to fix this part and then fix all the stuff that comes after. So what I'm going to do is use this animate using range, which is something that I have started using a whole lot more. And then I'm going to say, once it hits here, this is the ball I'm using. So we're going to move the ball down and over. And you can see everything after that is going to come along for the ride. So now I've got this part, whoop, like this. I want to put a little arc in it, put it about here. But now everything afterwards has moved, so I don't have to fix any of that. And then I can go back in here and fix just the little stuff that needs to be adjusted, this little arc. Okay, so everything we do is in service of getting this stuff done quickly in the studio as possible. If you're working on a high quality project, you get a little bit more leeway for time, but that's not what I do. I love the chaos of get things done fast. Here we go. Boop, boop, boop. So maybe we want the ball to roll a little bit faster as it goes down the hill. I think so. We could just sneak our keys together a little bit. And you get better at remembering which version of things that you are, where you're collecting all your information and stuff. That's something you get better with time. So we could keep on doing that, make sure it rolls faster. We could add more obstacles, things of that nature. And then the next thing we want to do is go back to our friend here. It is swung out like this. Maybe it has 2 more frames of settle before coming back to, I'm going to do this so that my length stays the same, get it back to center, but then I'm going to pass center, turn it this way, and then go back to center. Needs a little bit more, a little past center, and we can just grab this one and then center. All right, so there's a quick job of that. It's a little bit tight. It doesn't have a lot of loosey-goosiness. So let's put some of that in there. Just giving it a little bit more flexibility. And now the timing is done for me, so I'm just taking advantage of that little bit of time to give it a little bit more love without doing everything from scratch. Everything's kind of about getting it close and then stealing the good out of it. There we go. It would be really smart if you were doing this to use your guide and do this now, because then your rope is going to stay the same size. I'm pretty sure mine is changing lengths. Oh, not too bad. It's a little bit length changing-y. It's not the worst. And again, this is just this rope tap is a good exercise because you can see this seat feels a little bit rigid. It doesn't have a lot of flow. It doesn't have a lot of flexibility. It feels a little bit stiff. And that's another place where you could just do this rope. Okay, the next rope is going to be looser. The next rope is going to be a stick. Like the character has to grab the stick, turn around, jump off the stick. You could go and watch those little gladiator shows and find all the different things that they do, jumping across different like heights of pipe, having to get more squash to get a higher jump, stuff like that. The ball is the best. Just do the ball forever. And when you get older and you're doing really complex stuff and you're confused, you want to think back to the ball and little stuff like this and all the things you've learned, and you could use it for more complex stuff. You could use this little connecting to the curve thing that we did, this kinematic output thing. You could use that for props with a character. Characters holding something in 2 hands. You could have all of that connected together so that you don't have to counter animate the hand and the prop. It's a terrible idea, and people do it all the time. Just don't do that. Okay. So that's it. If there's something that you have to animate that you have trouble with, please let me know. Please be like, whenever I get this, I hate it. And I will try and help you out and find a better way. And if I don't know, I'll go ask the guys in the character animation department because they know even more than me about this stuff. All right. So that's it. Like, share, subscribe, all those things internet people ask you to do. And I will see you in the next video.